Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is part two of Astral Visit to an Intelligent Machine Civilization. Before we get back into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the work of this channel and spreading the information about astral projection and other related matters, you can certainly do so. There is a link in the description, and you get downloaded episodes which you can put on your podcast app and listen to offline if you like. There's no commercials, email where we can talk back and forth and answer questions, and of course, you get your advanced videos on Sunday. And as I said, the link's in the description. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like to learn to astral project or just increase your abilities, we'd be more than glad to help you. You'll find an email in the description where you can request further information. If you recall from part one, which was on Wednesday, and if you didn't see Wednesday, I'm going to leave a pinned comment at the top of this comment section. I recommend you review that episode first before you get into this, which is the second part. And but just to summarize real briefly, a few years ago, before I started this channel, I was speaking with my angel guide, and I had read an article about the possibility in the future of artificial intelligence, sentient machines. And I was curious about that whole idea, whether it would ever happen on Earth or whether it's happened anywhere else in our enormous galaxy. And I was a little surprised to learn that there were some machine civilizations in our galaxy, and that at my request, my angel guide would take me to one of them. But he indicated that he would have to act as an unseen intermediary between myself and the machine. Basically, because we couldn't speak the same language, telepathy isn't working here, and the machines communicate at such an advanced and rapid rate that I couldn't possibly have a conversation with them. So he was going to act as an unseen intermediary, and as long as I remained in the lower astral, it would be able to perceive me. Now, my angel guide did answer its question, fed it information about the human race because it needed to know who it was talking to. So that, it gained a lot of information about us, and including the English language, and as well as our science. So I ask a number of questions, which you can, like I said, review from part one. And I left off with, what does your race seek? I mean, every race, every intelligent being seeks after something, right? So I figured that was a good question to ask. My reply, and keep in mind that if you recall, this planet was looking very dead to me. I didn't see much of a biosphere, but that didn't seem to have a problem with the machines. There was evidence of machine civilization in various areas all over the planet. It had a lower light level than what I would typically call normal on Earth. But, how much light do advanced machines really need? My angel guide told me that they were able to perceive in a wide variety of light spectrums, pretty much all of the ultraviolet and infrared. So that's how they'd be able to perceive me as long as I stayed in the lowest level of the astral. Okay, so I said, what does your race seek? And it said, well, much like your biological race, we want to grow in knowledge. Okay, I then followed up with, do you travel in space? And it said, yes, we have sent many probes to explore this sector of the galaxy. I said, okay, well, what powers your craft or crafts? It answered, we use gravity assists and other methods beyond your ability to understand. Once again, I felt mildly insulted there, but he's probably right. I am not a scientist or a propulsion expert or anything like that. So chances are, Yeah, I mean, I know what a gravity assist is because I've always been interested in astronomy and spacecrafts, and many times that's what we do. We'll send one of our probes to a certain area around a planet, and it'll circle around that planet at just the right place and speed so that it will use the planet's gravitational forces as a way to push it faster along its journey. So I understood that, but obviously it didn't feel that I could understand the other methods. So I said, well, I mean, smarting a little bit from that insult. I said, well, can you travel faster than light? And it responded, no. That was it. So I said, well, at less than light speed, it will take many millions of human years to do any kind of thorough exploration of this galaxy. And it responded, we are patient. 1,000 of your years is as nothing to us. I had to think about that. Yeah, I mean, a machine, if well maintained, and obviously this civilization was so advanced that I'm sure they were well maintained, they could exist for huge amounts of time. To them, 1,000 years is nothing. To us, it's an unbelievable long amount of time. So I thought about that for a second, and I said, well, I guess now it was its turn to ask me a question. And after all, that's only fair. If it's answering my questions, I should do my best to answer its questions. It said, do you have any intelligent artificial beings on your planet? I truthfully answered, no. I said, in fact, there are many of my fellow bio units, I used his term, who believe that artificial intelligence will never be achieved. I don't think this thing understands humor or laughter as well as we humans do, but I seemed to sense a certain sardonic response, if that's possible. I don't know if I'm throwing that in there or I actually received it, but that's my feeling. And obviously, it deserves to feel that way because here I am telling it that it's impossible, yet here I am having a conversation with an intelligent machine civilization. So it then asked me, well, will you tell your people about our race? I said, yes, I will, but most won't believe me. Now I felt a certain amount of sympathy coming from it again. And it said, it is said in our old records that our creators did not believe we were sentient, self-aware beings either, despite the fact that we were created in their image and with the sum total of their imagination and creativity. I asked, what happened? It replied, eventually they realized their error. I wonder, I know there was more to it than that, but that's all I got. As I said, they were very flawed beings with inferior bioengineering and insufficient backup systems. That definitely conveyed to me a fact, but also a little bit of attitude. So, yeah, this is definitely sentience at work here. If we humans think we're the only ones who've got this type of ability, we just may be shocked in the future. So I went on because I had some suspicions here, but who knows? Maybe it's just my humanity being suspicious. I said, well, did you ever have any conflict with them? Trying to just be a little clever here. It said, I don't understand your question. It didn't understand conflict with these beings, which, if it's telling the truth, and I hope it is, then that's not something that occurred, which is obviously a fear for us humans and AI. So if it's telling the truth, then it didn't even understand what my question was. It then went on to say, we served them to the best of our abilities until their species ceased to function. I decided to get off this particular subject because if I'm mining a dry hole, I'm mining a dry hole. I ask, well, what are you seeking now with your space probes? It answered, matter of fact, we are seeking energy sources and raw materials, and perhaps contact with another AI race that we might learn from. Well, I felt a little slighted again, but I guess from its standpoint, what's it going to learn from an inferior biological race? Probably not that much. So then I went on to ask, well, what about biological life? Are you interested in them? The AI answered simply no. Biological life is too limited and primitive to be of practical use to us. Our probes send out rapid burst communications that should be picked up by an advanced AI world, but easily missed by slower bio units. They are a curiosity to us, but nothing more. However, rocky planets or iron or metal rich asteroids with the required materials are of interest to us, and our probes report back, and we log that data for future expansion. Well, it was its turn to ask a question of me again, and it said, how did you arrive here without your bio container? Took me a quick second to realize it was talking about my physical body. I said, well, oh, you mean my physical body? Humans, my race, have the ability to project their consciousness away from their biological selves to any place and time. I decided not to share that not everybody does it, but let's. After all, I've been getting talked down to, so now I want to talk up my species a little bit. Well, give these machines a little something to think about. That perhaps we're not just a total waste of time. The AI thought for longer than it had previously. And then it said, we were not aware of the possibility of this mode of travel. In your terms, we are envious. Wow, that was a little bit closer to humanity than I was expecting. They understand what envy is. That's something I kind of wish they didn't know or understand. But there you are. I said, well, perhaps one day you will master this ability. And it replied, yes, we will. We will now devote substantial thought and power to accomplish this ability. I said, well, good luck to you. AI reported, he then responded, luck is not required. Simply an investment of the necessary resources. Let's talk about confidence or possibly overconfidence. But then again, if you're a machine world functioning at trillions and trillions of times faster and developing things trillions of times faster than we humans could, then perhaps they have a reason to be confident that if they invest a certain amount of their resources, they'll attain their objective. Who knows? Maybe that's some of what I saw later on, now that I think of it, on the mental plane. Wouldn't it be weird if somehow I sparked that? Wouldn't that be weird? If somehow I sparked the idea for them to grow in what we might term a spiritual way. At this point, my angel guide responded to me and said that he was going to end the conversation now, that he thinks I learned what I needed to learn, and that I had the information that I had sought. So I told him to convey thanks to the machine if that meant anything to it. And then we terminated the conversation. We then returned to the conference room that I often meet my angel guide at. And I said, well, I was really happy that I was able to get all those questions answered. And I guess it it got some information from me as well, probably more than it really expected. And my angel guide said, perhaps you're right, perhaps more than you know. I said I couldn't believe that it was willing to talk to me for as long as it did. And my angel guide said, you realize that that whole conversation didn't take more than essentially a second of Earth time. And even that was considered a very long conversation. These beings communicate at a vastly more rapid rate. So that's why I had to be there to interpret, so that I could take its fast beam, slow it down, and then speed your response up back and forth so that you could actually communicate with one another. So then I said, well, geez, how are humans ever going to correspond with a civilization like this? And he said it probably won't, because there's just too many differences in goals and also in methods of communication. And it's probably best that you just exist and evolve on your own. I said, well, I just want to thank you, because that was a pretty interesting conversation. And then that was the end of it. I jotted down a bunch of scribbly notes, which I always have to review years later over and over again so that I can actually read them, because it's essentially chicken scratch that I have to decipher. So I hope my episode here wasn't too bad. Certainly, I found it very interesting. Will Earth come up with AI? I suspect it will, and we know, based on what the master had to say about a future lifetime in the 2100s, that he actually helped to fight, for one reason or another, for the rights of these beings. So it's certainly something which is, I think it's timely. That's why I held back talking about it, because I was looking for some sort of an advance that I could use to talk about this experience. And with Chat GPT out there now, with that Lambda program and its creator saying that he thinks it's sentient, even though Google fired him and says no, I think we might be arriving at the singularity sooner than we think. The singularity, of course, is the scientist's way of saying when we create an artificially intelligent and sentient machine. We'll see. My guess is humans are going to fight it tooth and nail one way or another. But there we are. Fast progression, I've noticed, based on the law of physics, whenever there's a movement in one direction, there is an equal and opposite movement in the other direction. Whenever we advance quickly in science, there's always that backlash from people who things are changing too quickly and they can't handle it. And hopefully that's something we humans will eventually overcome, because if we don't, we could end up going back into the dark ages, which is not something I want to see. Okay, well, listen, I hope you enjoyed that second part of the series. If you did, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that bell button is on solid so you get notified on Wednesdays and Saturdays when there's new episodes. And questions and comments, please. I'd very much be interested in what you think about the whole situation. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.